Good evening and welcome to ELOsoFumarTakes. This is our 48th take. I am your host, Bear Duplessis, as always, live from the Casa Cueva studios of Euless, Texas. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome you all in tonight. Just a fantastic, fantastic show that we have brought to you for you. I've been really excited about this show in particular, and it was kind of put together last minute. Not last minute, but a little bit closer than what I normally. And our guest was so gracious to fill in for this particular spot, and I'm so glad that he did. And so, without further ado, I'd like to welcome in Mr. Tom Lazuka of Asylum Cigars. Tom, how you doing tonight?
Doing great, Bear. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. I'm so excited to have you on, and we're going to be talking a little bit about your cigars, obviously, here in just a few moments. But I wanted to ask you. So we're kind of talking a little bit about off air. Um, you're a son of Detroit and Michigan. So I wanted to ask you, since the baseball season is now ended. My team, I'm not gonna rub salt in the wound or anything like that, but my team's done well. But I am a big Rod Gardenhire fan, and so I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on how you think he did for his first season heading your awesome Tigers of Detroit.
Yeah, unfortunately, they hung in there for about half the season, and obviously losing Cabrera didn't help, and they've just got a lot of young guys. I think the pitching staff is decent, but the team's like a team that I don't even know who they are half the time because they've got so many new players coming up, and they Justin Upton's gone, JD Martinez is gone, with Cabrera out and all the pitching staff, Verlander, Scherzer, they've just made a lot of changes. So it's just a young team. They were an older team and they've got a lot younger. So, Gardenhire's always done a great job of building with less. He did it for years in Minnesota. So I hope he can turn the Tigers around.
And at least historically, Detroit's been a team that will actually spend money when it comes down to it. I mean, they ponied up for Miguel Cabrera. I mean, they've made decent offers along the line. They got Vmart back in the day, for a pretty healthy contract for its time. So I mean, historically, they will spend money. So when the time's right, I feel like you'll still be able to attract some great players because of Gardenhire's previous success and from the young talent that's on the team. I'm a big Fulmer fan. I think he's a great pitcher. I think he's going to be quite. Like I told you, I think they might end up trading him for some more pieces at some point. But if he does stay him around, he could be definitely the center point of your team in the future.
Yeah, for sure. I know they've, there's been rumors about him going, and then, now the Tigers have always spent under with the old owner Mike Ilitch, who passed away. He wanted to win, so he spent like a big market team in a mid market city, and now they're just kind of toning back, trying to rebuild. And there's a lot of talk of Dan Gilbert, the owner of the Cavaliers, buying the Tigers.
Oh man,
So I don't know how that,
that's
what
kind of
that
got mixed
means.
emotions, right? That's giving you mixed emotions a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, he's a Detroit guy, right? Like there was
Right.
just no team available. I mean, he bought the Cavaliers and he's invested a lot of money in Detroit. So, if he spends the money on the Tigers the way he spends it on properties and rebuilding Detroit, it could be a good thing too. So,
Yeah, I mean, I I liked those. I like those Jim Leland led Tigers. Um, I'm also a big Jim Leland fan. So like your managers for the past few years have kind of had like a soft place in my heart because I for the most part I could go either way on the Tigers. I'm a big Justin Verlander fan. I like Justin Verlander. So you guys have raised some really great players. You've had really great managers, really great leadership and stuff. So I really hope I really hope that Ron Gardenhire and the new ownership, whoever it is, can really turn it around because I think that Tigers are one of those historical teams that you like you like it when they're good.
yeah, I do for sure. I know. The Lions lost to the Cowboys today in a close one.
Yeah, so oddly enough, I'm a Green Bay fan. So I know that's random. I'm a Boston fan for pretty much everything, but Green Bay is my football team. Mostly because I inherited my fanship from my father. My father grew up in the Northeast, and except for he didn't have a football team growing up. In fact, he'll say he sort of rooted for the New York Giants, but not really.
Yeah.
Um, and so he really didn't have a team, but I ended up. Long story short, I was a Reggie White fan. Reggie White went into going to Green Bay, and I became a Green Bay fan. That's kind of the really Reader's Digest version of it. But they beat the Bills today in a shutout, where the Bills completely shut out Minnesota, which was a team we tied. The NFL's crazy this year. Absolutely nuts.
It is.
Absolutely.
It is. Like I said, we beat the Patriots last week, and then and then the Patriots come out and blow out the Dolphins this week, right? So you never know. That's why they play the game.
It's yeah, and I speaking of fancy, and I feel like I'm sucking up to my guest here. I'm a big Stafford guy, but he's from Texas. I mean, he's from the area.
Yeah.
So I saw that kid play in high school, and it's just remarkable to see what the talent that he's risen to for you guys, and he's done some great things. I mean, he had a great receiver for most of his career up there, but he's really good at spreading the ball around. So, hopefully he can kind of turn around from these couple of early losses, the Jets, the Cowboys, and really, for your sake, lose to the Packers for my sake, but for every other game, I hope it wins for you.
I appreciate that.
So let's turn the tide a little bit over to cigars here. So Tom, I told you this. I prefaced. I said, hey, I'm going to tell this story. You probably won't remember it, and if you do, great. But just I want to know if you remember this story, and don't please don't feel bad if you don't. It's okay. You tech to tens of thousands of people a year. So you actually came down to the retail shop that I work at, Michael's Tobacco of Euless, and I worked an event with you. This was a couple of years ago.
Yep.
And it's when we first met, and we were talking about your cigars and Christian cigars, and at the time Edgar was also with you with the Osox and stuff, and we were chatting about your cigars, and you asked me point blank, have you ever smoked any of my cigars? And I said absolutely, and you're like, have you ever smoked any of the what's the largest gauge you've smoked? And I said 70 by 7. He's like, oh, really? And you said, how many have you smoked? And I said, one.
Yeah.
And true to form, that is my only 70 gauge cigar that I have ever smoked until tonight.
Nice.
And I am smoking another one. In honor of you, sir, being a guest, I really appreciate it. So, and my response was, and you kind of were like, why? And I, with all due respect to the great big gauge blenders out there, Ernesto Perez Carrillo, you can't mention big gauge without him in the same sense, obviously. Noel Rojas, great people out there that make fantastic large gauge cigars. You have this man to thank me for smoking your 60 gauge cigars, because after smoking a 70 gauge, 60 gauges aren't bad at all. Whatsoever.
Well, if you smoke the 80, the 70 feels kind of normal.
Oh my God, no, can't do it. No, but it's interesting for those people who are watching and are like, man, I could a 70 gauge like that is huge. Like, look at him. He like, how is he even smoking? Look, I told you, here's the reason why I said I only smoked one. The reason I only smoked one is I told you, I said it can't get any better than that. There's no way, because I smoked it and the construction was great, the flavor was phenomenal, it held up. Like, I smoked that down pretty far. I pulled off the label and I was smoking it down to, probably within about an inch and a half. And when it really opens up, that's where you really get a lot of really fantastic flavor. Like early on in the smoke, like it is now, there is the draw is a lot harder, but once it really begins to open up, you get a lot of really wonderful deep flavors about it. So what? Well, actually, okay. So I'm gonna flip the question on you, Tom. How many 70 gauges Asylum 13s have you smoked? Do you think? Do you think you can narrow down to a range of a number?
Yeah, probably. I would say about 50.
50. Okay.
Yeah, I try and smoke one like once a quarter just to make sure they're burning good. The construction's good, that kind of stuff. But it's not something that I smoke every day. Obviously, I kind of tended to go towards the 46 to 50 ring gauge stuff a lot more lately.
It's
Where before I was smoking a lot of 54 and 60. So I've kind of went down a little bit with some of the new stuff like the medulla oblongata and the maduros. I just loving that size. And then the Prieto, we came out with on the CLE side, the Aroa First 20. My absolute favorite size is the 46 by 6 box press.
Yeah, the medulla oblongata project we're gonna talk about here in a second, but the question I wanted to ask you, and it's interesting that because you're known for these larger gauge cigars, like big gauge fans gravitate towards your brand specifically because of it, and not that you dislike it or anything, but it's just not in your wheelhouse anymore. Is it strange to be kind of infamous for something that may not be your necessarily your favorite?
No, the bottom line about this cigar is I do enjoy it. I just usually don't have 3 hours, and I don't like to waste it. It's not
Right.
necessarily the size because I love the flavor, the way it burns. It burns nice and cool. There's tons of flavor in it, and I prefer something that doesn't burn hot. So, uh, for me, I enjoy it. I usually just don't have 3 hours to smoke one cigar.
I mean, absolutely true. Like, and that's why I like Churchill's, is because the smoke is cooler, and that is something I mean, that's something that I haven't mentioned when I've described your cigar. Like when people come to the shop and they're talking about, like, I want the biggest cigar you got in the house, and they say, well, which one have you smoked? And I'm like, well, I got to be honest with you, this is it right here. And that's one descriptor that I've never thrown on it, is the cool smoke. And because I like Churchill's for that reason, the smoke is cooler, and it's just a longer, more elegant smoke. And while you probably wouldn't stick that adjective of elegant on this behemoth here,
Yeah.
there I mean, but there is some elegance in that cooler smoke that has that flavor that's a little bit more. Obviously it's less hot. I'm not gonna dumb it down that much, but like, it's the smoke is a little is less intense, and so you get to really concentrate on the flavor of the tobacco, instead of it just being completely warmed up. It's a different experience. I'm kind of
It's a
fumbling over my words for here, but
well,
it's a
I
different
think it
experience.
combustion rate, right? The combustion rate just burns cooler. Where a smaller ring gauge, Lanceros, other things like that, just tend to burn a little hotter. You've got to draw on them more often. Where the 70s and 80 ring gauge cigars, you don't need to draw them as often, and they just don't get as hot. So it's a much cooler smoke. It gives you lots of smoke, but it's just a cooler smoke, and I think that makes a difference in the flavor of the cigar.
Yeah, I think the as I'm smoking this literally for the second time ever, I think I honestly think that the tractor for me isn't necessarily the length or anything. I think it's just I think it is. I think time. I think you're absolutely right. I think, as I'm sitting here smoking it, again for the second time, I'm like, well, why was I?
Well, you're gonna
I
have to start smoking faster, Bear, because we're gonna be on until you finish it.
Oh, no, no,
And I
no,
don't think I
no.
have enough battery for that. So
Well, I
you're
was gonna
gonna
say
have
your
to really
battery,
start hammering that thing.
and I know your fiance is patiently waiting. She waited patiently for you all week to come return home, and I know she's patiently waiting for the show to end as well. So I know I can't do that to her. She was kind enough to lend us her house as a venue tonight for your side of the operation here. So can't do that. But yeah, I'll try to speed this up here a little bit.
I'm just kidding. Don't do it. It could
Enjoy,
turn
right?
into it could
Enjoy.
turn you green. Yeah, I've been to events where guys see how fast they can smoke it.
Oh gosh.
And I did one at a friend. His name's Moose. We just call him Moose, but he finished it in like 28 minutes.
28 minutes.
Yes, 28 minutes.
Sweet.
and then put a giant thing of chew in his mouth after. And I'm like, have you had enough nicotine yet? And why the other three people were throwing up on the lawn. So
Oh my
yeah, it
gosh.
was a bad idea. But yeah, 28 minutes he smoked it in.
28 minutes. That's insane.
That
That's
is.
and by contrast, I had the pleasure of interviewing um Jason Loyce, who's at one time was
Yeah,
the
I know
American
Jason.
cigar smoke, yeah, the cigar smoke
Yeah,
champion,
yeah,
who made a
he's out
Corona
in
that lasts like 3 hours. You know,
yeah, he's out in Kentucky. Yeah, he is the cigar buyer for Liquor Bar now
yeah, Liquor Barn,
in
yeah,
Louisville. Yeah,
yeah, and he made a Corona in these contests. They make Coronas last hour and a half, 3 hour. I mean, the world record something like 3 hours. It's just obnoxious. And Coop and I tried smoking it on the show, like by the rules and all this other stuff. I got like 33 minutes in or something without it going out, and Coop made it barely beat me. It was just insane. So 28 minutes. Oh my god, that's
yeah,
insane. Who
it
does that?
is.
Well,
Ah,
Moose does. Moose
Moose
apparently
does.
does.
Yes, he did.
Oh goodness. So like okay, so I think Christian Iro, who you work with very closely on all your projects and everything at CLE, I don't think I won't. I'll paraphrase her. I don't want to call this a direct quote from him, but I don't think I don't think he was ecstatic or very enthusiastic about this project initially with the large gauge cigars, and so what did it take from your part? What did it take for you to convince him, like, no, man, this is it. We're gonna make this work, and we're gonna build something phenomenal on this.
Well, it just well, I ordered the bands and said, "Hey, I need molds." And he said, "That's the worst idea I've ever heard." Yeah, I mean, to put it simple, he hated the idea. He's like, "That's not going to work." But
So I put
we're
it much
gonna,
more diplomatically. I was like, he wasn't enthusiastic. He hated
yeah.
it.
He was just like, "That's the worst idea I've ever heard." But I'm going to do it just to say I told you so. So
Okay.
I guess the rest is history. So he doesn't have that option, and I get to rub that in his face every day.
Yeah, and he's got those new sizes for the CLE Habano in Connecticut. Those short, large. Yeah, they're not quite 70. I think they're like 69, right, or something.
Yeah, they're
69
chaparros.
gauge.
Yeah, we
The
call them the
Chaparros.
chaparros, and they, yeah. So we got up to like a 69 by 4, a 54 by 4, and a 60 by 4.
See, I spoke to 69. It still wasn't a 70 though. You still
That's
hold
right.
it. You still hold it, man. You still hold the franchise on my 70 gauge career. Yeah, and I smoked 69, and yeah, I wasn't shocked at all that I really enjoyed it. Just because of albeit brief and somewhat selective, my history with the larger gauges with y'all is tremendous. And now, like, but this did, not to kind of beat a dead horse, but what this cigar did for me, Tom, was that it did allow me to go back and enjoy. I'm still, I admit I'm not sold. I'm still not a big gauge smoker. I'd say that all
Yeah.
the time, but it did allow me to go back and really truly appreciate your 60 and other
Thank you.
60 gauge cigars that are on the market that I kind of was like, well,
Too
no,
big.
yeah, too big, not for me. I'm not a big gauge guy or whatever. And truly it really opened up a lot of my palate, and a lot of things that I was really missing. So in that sense, I really want to thank you for doing that. Even though you obviously didn't do it just for me, you do this for a lot of people of incredibly popular cigars, incredibly popular size. Is this your number one size in this line?
It's our number one size in every line.
Every line.
It is the 770 Asylum 13 Nicaragua is our number one seller out of every product we make. We can't make enough of them. It really has taken off. We try and figure out who is the smoker, right? But it's everybody. I mean, we have such a wide variety of people that smoke the big ring gauge cigars. We can't pinpoint any one group, or uh, it just has taken off. So it's been a pretty good ride, and we're going to continue to make them as long as they want them.
I think because like one of the one of the buzzwords that we use in cigar media and that we talk about on occasion is trends, and for a while the big gauge trend was something huge. Like everyone was doing it and everyone was putting out a Gordo, and even then I think to a certain extent now, I think if you launch a line, not that there's much of that going on these days, thanks FDA, but I think that a Gordo is kind of made its way into the mainstream line setup for people who are introducing lines to the market. But that being said, I think that there's still the trend has dropped off quite a bit to where for other folks the Gordo is given less attention. It's made less because they don't sell as many and everything like that. But this really is, I think it's safe to say it's stayed the test of time. And I mean, it's not, we're not talking decades yet at this point. It's still pretty early on and everything. But I think, you know, obviously it's withstood the trend, the dip and stuff, and you're still, it's still killing it.
Yeah, it's been growing for us from day one. We're a little over 6 years in now, and you see like a lot of brands, life expectancy tends to be 18 to 24 months. They rise and then they start falling. For us, we keep growing at a nice, steady, consistent pace year after year. And the big ring gauge, yeah, a lot of people came into the game, tried to get into the market. For whatever reason, it didn't work for them, but it's just kind of limited. There's not that many of us that still do it. So, but there is a consumer for it, and it's not going away.
Yeah, no, it
So
certainly isn't.
we're able to keep educating people and getting more people to try it. And as we do that, the brand just keeps growing. And that's kind of, we were talking a little bit about the medulla oblongata. And what's kind of unique for us with that cigar is that we do make some big ring gauges in that, but for the first time, the smaller ring gauges are doing really well for the Asylum brand. Where normally, whether it's the Ogre or the 13 Nicaragua or whatever it is, they've always been the big ring gauges have been the best sellers, and we're seeing a change in that trend with the medulla oblongata.
Yeah, and that is something that I wanted to touch. When I first saw that project from you, and I was frankly, I was really curious. For anyone who's a loyal smoker of yours and that shows up on your shelf one day, that had to get they probably had the same reaction that I did. I was very curious. I was kind of curious to see what you were going to be doing in this cigar that, while like you said, you do make it in a larger gauge, what it was doing in a much smaller gauge. So tell me a little bit about the project. Like what was the genesis of it? Is it a I'm going to ask the dumb question here. Is it a Waterboy reference or?
It is,
Oh,
yes.
okay.
That was Christian's idea. He loves that stuff. So, yeah, obviously we play into both sides, but yeah, it's a Waterboy reference in the end.
All right, that's awesome. So, was it your idea, his, or a collection of offering? Because it is the same blend. One's just a Parejo and the other one's soft box, right? Soft box.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, it's the same blend. This idea, the actual splitting the box was Christian's idea on this one. We've, obviously I started working with Christian many years ago with Camacho when him and his father owned that brand. So the authentic Corojo tobacco has always been something that I kind of enjoy, and it's my go-to. And even though Asylum, we do a lot of stuff in Nicaragua, we really wanted to come out with a product. We had the Asylum Corojo that we did out of Honduras, but this is just kind of a special cigar. The tobacco's aged longer, fermented a little differently, and it's higher primings. So it's just a great, smooth, medium body cigar. And the Maduro is a little bit, it's full flavor, but I don't consider it a full body cigar.
So yeah, the Maduro I'm really excited about. Have not tried it. Christian was kind enough to hand me one at the trade show this year, just a few months ago. I've been kind of letting it sit, and because truth be told, I just enjoy the original Medulla Oblongata extremely well. But as you and I were talking about before the show, when I first started getting like and really nerding out on tobacco and cigars and like, hey, what am I actually smoking? and what am I really liking? I discovered fairly early on that I enjoyed Corojo tobacco. I liked the flavor component. It suited my palate well. It was a great smoke, and from that point, I don't think I've. And I was telling you this. I don't think I've ever had a Corojo wrap cigar that was awful. Like it just doesn't exist. There, I mean, sure there have been some that I don't like that that aren't my preference, but I there just really hasn't been a Corojo wrap cigar that I'm just like, oh God, that was the worst thing. That was terrible. Like that was just awful. It just I don't think for me and my palate, I don't think that could possibly exist. And this isn't a challenge to anyone out there to make a Corojo wrap cigar that's awful. Anything that I would
So,
smoke it.
hey, Bear, I don't want to cut you off. I'm going to have to make an adjustment because my battery on my phone is dying very quickly.
Okay,
So
sounds good.
I'm gonna just move spots real quick
Sounds good. Plug her in.
and plug her in, and I'm
Appreciate
probably
it.
gonna have to pull my the earbuds out. So
No
give me
problem.
just a second here, because sorry, my flight delays and all that good stuff kind of put me behind today, and then I didn't have any way to charge my phone.
No problem. Well, while you're getting set up, I will kind of brief everyone on that. Guys, I really want to say thank you to Tom again for coming on the show here. We've got a couple more questions and we'll wrap this up here. But Tom was so gracious with his time. He had a full week this week, was flying back into town tonight, and he was like, "Yeah, I fly back in. Shouldn't be a problem or anything." He calls me immediately this afternoon or texts me and says, "Hey, Bear, my flight's delayed. Just letting you know that I might not be able to make it." And so while I was trying to possibly push the show out, thinking about times and stuff like that, we realized with the time zone difference we were actually sitting pretty, so we were able to start on time tonight. But it was just I really wanted to thank you, Tom, for reaching out and again making such a special effort for hustling home. I mean, flight delays, I mean, absolutely suck, and after a long week of traveling, I'm sure you just wanted to get home. And so we really, really appreciate your time.
No, it's my pleasure. It was no. I just wanted to be sure we were on the same page, just in case I got stuck somewhere. We would have figured it out one way or another.
Awesome, awesome. Can you get your headphones plugged back in, or are you gonna
I
have to go without them?
I have to go this route because
Okay.
the new iPhones don't have jacks for
Right,
headphones.
right, right, right. Can you do you think you could turn up the volume on your phone a little bit, or is it jacked all the way?
It is all the way, my friend. So I
Okay, that's cool.
apologize for our
No,
technical.
it's a little soft, but it's good. We are totally solid, so not a big deal at all. So, just want to continue talking about the Medulla Oblongata project just a little bit more. So you released the Corojo, and then you decided to go with the Maduro version of it. How did you guys put those projects together at the same time, or did one follow the other, and then that's the way you guys decided to release them nationally?
No, we did the Corojo first, and when we came into 2018, we decided to do the Maduro. So, and we're using a San Andreas Maduro, but we're actually growing that seed in Honduras. So it's a
Oh
San
wow,
Andreas seed just grown in Honduras.
that's awesome. So excited to try that now. That's really cool. I'm a big fan of San Andreas. I think San Andreas is a fantastic tobacco leaf, and when blended well, it really can create a beautiful cigar. So with San Andreas seed in Honduras, man, that's really awesome. Um, what you have a very, like you said before, you alluded to earlier, you've had a very long history in a partnership in many ways with the Iroa family. Was it important for you from an homage standpoint to honor the Iroa family by creating a cigar that did take that Corojo tobacco that's so prevalent in their family and make it the essence of this release?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I been very fortunate to be with Christian and his father for many years, and whether it was with the prior company, and then when Christian decided to start a new company, and I was fortunate enough for him to invite me and say, "Come on, let's do this," and I was all in. So any way that we can promote Honduras, promote Christian and his father, Julio's tobacco, is great for me, because it's just, again, if there's one cigar on earth that's left to smoke and I had to pick one, it's going to be our authentic Corojo tobacco. So for me, it was, yeah, very important. And Nicaragua's been great for us. Our partners over there really take good care of us and make sure we're getting great cigars out of those factories. But uh, you know, when you can do it at home in our own factories and using our own tobacco, it's just something that's a little more special.
It certainly is, and that, I mean, the family in general, and I've tried to explain to customers, and I've given them a history lesson on Corojo and the Iroa family and everything, and I'm sure in my brief synopsis when I'm educating customers, I certainly I give the proper amount of credit, but I certainly don't do it justice because there isn't enough. And as far as I'm concerned, there's not enough justice in the world that can serve what the Iroa family has done for the Corojo leaf specifically, and for the premium cigar industry. Um, it's truly one of the staples. I think that a lot of companies have in their portfolio, and it's all thanks to him, and the Iroa family. So it's really fantastic. And the Medulla Oblongata is a great project. I really got to hand it to you personally, because I think that when again, you know what I was alluding to earlier, for someone who's so infamous for something so different or something so specific, to take a diversion off of that. While you do have smaller gauge cigars for the Asylum 13 and everything like that, you did say the 7x70 is your number one seller by far. And a way to depart from that, and create something that is so terrific. I mean, is really, you got to give yourself a lot of credit. Or if you don't want to give yourself credit, I certainly will.
Well, I appreciate it, and like I don't do it all by myself. Christian and I really kind of brainstorm and kick ideas around together, and when we get together, we really come up with some great concepts and ideas. And Christian was obviously a huge part of the Medulla Oblongata and the concept and the idea, and we kind of stole a little bit the Asylum of the CLE side by putting the tissue wrap on the cigars and how we package it.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously we started that with the 70s because they just didn't look good in cellophane. They just did not look good. The cellophane just, it almost looked too big on it. It didn't look good. So we started tissue wrapping just the foot,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
you know, and then when, Christian, we started kind of repackaging the CLE product. We put a lot bigger tissue, kind of almost all the way up to the band,
right.
and then putting the blend, or whether it's Corojo or Connecticut or Habano, Prieto, Chile, whatever, we put them right on that paper, and it just has such an elegant look to it. So, we obviously started transferring some of that look into the Medulla Oblongata too. So it's really collaborative effort between both of us, and it's worked well for us. So I can't take all the credit. Christian does a great job,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
obviously he comes up with a decent idea once in a while.
Well, the tissue is a real nice throwback to, to a very old school way of presenting cigars. I mean, cellophane hasn't been around forever. It's been around for a lot longer than people realize, but it hasn't been around forever. And before that, they were just in the box. And when retailers, or excuse me, when manufacturers wanted to make their cigars a little bit more presentable, tissue paper was a way to kind of class it up and everything. And yeah, the tissue on the footband does really give it a more elegant look, which is really nice. But I from a retailer talking to you, I can't thank you enough for the small gift that you give us on that tissue paper, which is the UPC. So
Yeah.
really fantastic. I can't thank you enough for that. So
So we didn't
for
have a
those who
choice.
know, they can understand the pain. Because anytime a manufacturer provides the UPC, it makes life a whole lot easier for sure. So, but the last question I wanted to touch on was a project that you did with the New Holland Brewing Company.
Yes.
We didn't really talk about this pre-show, so if I'm catching you a little off guard, but I would be remiss personally if I didn't talk to you about this. What was it about New Holland, and specifically their beer, the Dragon's Milk, that got you thinking that you wanted to do a partnership with them on a particular cigar?
It was funny. They do something called the Michigan's Brewers Guild, and they have 4 shows at different times a year around Michigan. And my sales rep, Lucas, we just call him Nook, and I were in Ypsilanti one day, and he's like, let's go. So we went to this Michigan Brewers Guild, and there's about 80 different Michigan breweries there. And we had just kind of been walking by, and we stopped in and to the New Holland booth,
Mm-hmm.
and the owner, Brett Vanderkamp, was there. And so I started talking to Brett about an idea about doing cigars in like a bourbon barrel or a beer barrel cigar. And he loved the idea. And so we sat there, and he kept feeding me some like night tripper or something. It was like dragon's milk on steroids. It was like 18%.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so we had a few of those and started brainstorming. And like 2 days later, I had called Christian, and he flew in 2 days later. We went over to New Holland and to their to the brewery itself, and started talking about the project. And so they cut a barrel, and we started aging cigars at different times and for different lengths and different blends to see what would work. And it took us about 6 months, and then we stuck with one, and it was a great project for us. I mean, they were a great partner to do it with, and they would send the barrels down to Nicaragua for us, and we'd do it a little differently than other companies. A lot of them take the actual like filler leaf and put them in the barrel and then constantly rotate that. Well, we took the entire cigar and put them in the barrel. And we made a rack system inside the barrels, and we would just put the complete cigar in. And then once they were in there long enough, we'd pull them out, dry them, and then put the bands on. And so it was a great project for us. I mean, unfortunately, somebody else in the industry didn't like the fact that we had the name Dragon on it. So they asked us to no longer do that. And we understood and said, yeah. So, we still make them. We call them something else. Obviously, there's a little shop called George's Smoke Shop in Holland, Michigan. So we still make them for them. I think we call them Aged on Eighth. And so we still make the cigars, just not under the Dragon's Milk name. And they're available at George's in Holland, Michigan, if anybody's looking for them.
Check it out. Yeah, no, and I've actually gotten that question before, and I said, man, I haven't seen it for a couple of years now, and it was a really really interesting cigar, and usually that word interesting kind of is kind of a euphemism for not good. I think a lot of people say, oh, it was interesting, and there's like kind of like a smirk behind it, but no, it really was. It was an I don't want to call it infused, because it was, but it wasn't.
Well, I think you had to understand. I think a lot of people thought it was going to be very much like the beer itself.
Right.
And to understand the process of how they actually make the beer, it would help understand the cigar a little better. Because what they do is they actually make bourbon in the barrel first.
Right.
And then they pull the bourbon out, they put the dragon's milk in it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they pull the beer out and they put the bourbon back in. And that's where they make something called beer barrel bourbon, is the New Holland bourbon.
Right.
And then we would get the barrels after that. So, the cigars themselves, from a smoking standpoint on your palate, you tend to get more of the charred oak, which comes from the bourbon barrel. But aromatically, I think you've got more of the beer. So, it wasn't so much of just the beer. It was just kind of a mix of both. And I think some people expected it to be, taste like dragon's milk, but it was just kind of a mix between the charred oak of the barrel and the beer itself.
That's it really you're absolutely right, because it didn't taste it didn't have that beer flavor, it didn't necessarily even have that bourbon flavor, but it was a nice marriage of the two that really kind of lent well to the cigar, that was wonderful as well. So it was a really, like you said, it was a really interesting project, really a lot of fun, and I'm glad that you're still able to make it for George's. So George's in Holland, Michigan. Everybody out there who's looking for it, go get them, go get them. They're still there. So I think the thing that we can end this interview on, Tom, is that I think is appropriate, is the fact that great ideas spawn with beer.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt about that.
As long as it's 18% at least. Man, 18% beer. I'm pretty sure that would have knocked me down. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, it was tough.
That's
Good,
awesome.
but it
Well,
was strong.
Tom, we really appreciate you stopping by. And again, after a long week of travel, cannot thank you enough for stepping into us. For those of you guys tuned in a little bit late, rewind to the beginning part of the episode. We talked a lot of great stuff about Asylum Cigars, a little bit about Detroit baseball, but always great to talk to you, Tom. It was absolutely fantastic. It was absolutely a pleasure to have you on. So we really appreciate you taking some time for us tonight.
It was a pleasure. Thank you very much, Bear.
So for everyone out there, we really appreciate all your likes, shares, and comments. And it was absolutely our pleasure to welcome in Tom Lazuka of Asylum Cigars for our 48th take. We are creeping up on that number 50 take. It'll be here in a couple of weeks, and can't believe all the fun and all the amazing guests, just like Tom, that we've had on. We've got some great guests coming up as well. Check out our schedule for upcoming guest information. But rewind and watch this one first if you didn't catch it all, or if you did, we really appreciate you tuning in for all of it. Again, we love all your likes, shares, and comments. Check out our Facebook page and our YouTube channel for more fun details as well. As always, I'm Bear Duplessis, live from the Casa Cueva studios of Euless, Texas. It was absolutely my pleasure to bring you our 48th take with Mr. Tom Lazuka of Asylum Cigars. So for everyone out there, find your 70 gauge and make it an Asylum 13, because like I said before, it can't get any better than this. So
Yeah, I expect you to finish that, Bear.
I will, sir. I absolutely will. So thank you to everyone. We really appreciate it. And as always, we'll see you next time.